My little brother accidentally made a formula that makes people young, and my grandparents got exposed to it. Well, you see, now they're our age, and that was my grandmother last night, who looked exactly like me when she was my age, but now she is my age, so she looks like my twin.
What?
Same old bitter woman.
Selfish man.
I hope you guessed it, but this movie was the OG 17 Again. Now, this movie was a classic in my family growing up. We loved it so much. And it is like an A-star cast. Like, it has Tia Mowry, Tamara Mowry, and Taj Mowry, which in itself is so cool that they got to act in a movie together, all three of them. And the cool thing about this is Tia and Taj, they act as siblings in the movie, while Tamara plays the role of Kat, or their grandmother that gets turned into a 17-year-old again. Now, for this, I have to give kudos to Tamara because she killed her role. She basically had to act as a 17-year-old, but she was encompassing the personality of the grandmother, and she killed it. Like, just her lines she had, the attitude she brought, she did so good. I honestly have to give this movie 2 thumbs up. Thebomb.com. It has held the test of time. It is still really good. It's funny, too. In the beginning, the grandparents, Kat and Jean, did not get along, and so there's a scene where they're at the dinner table, and they're just insulting each other, and then you have the kids and their parents like just watching the interaction, like going back and forth between the grandparents as they're just sitting up and insulting themselves. So that's hilarious. But then through the course of the movie, you kind of have them as Kat and Jean both become 17 again. They kind of go on a path of discovery and come back to each other at the end. My big thing is, in this movie, I will definitely say, watching it as an adult, I noticed that Kat and Jean were very selfish when it came to their grandkids, and I was like, oh, I never noticed this as a kid. For instance, Jean, after he turned 17 again, he did not reach out to his family at all. He just left them. They were worried. He didn't come back to their house at all. He didn't call them, and he was just initially excited to be 17 again. He's like, oh, I don't ever want to go back to being 65. I want to stay in my teens and get another lease on life. And so he was just like really selfish the majority of the movie, and then he kind of had a moment where he realized his feelings for Kat and kind of became focused on Kat. But my big thing is he ended up caring more about Kat than his grandkids at all, like in the course of the movie. And then Kat, the grandmother, she was just so selfish when it came to Sydney and taking the guy that Sydney liked at the time and not even caring. She just wanted to get Jean jealous, and that was her thing. And Sydney wasn't even on her mind. She was like, I'm focusing on what I want, and what I want right now is to make my ex-husband, Jean, jealous, as I'm now a 17-year-old. But just the dialogue in this movie was good, the acting, I thoroughly enjoyed this. And Taj, this is kind of like, when he was in these movies, I always feel like he played a genius, because this is like shortly after Smart Guy, and in this movie, like, he creates a whole science experiment where his goal is to make these roses last for a really long time without dying, and so kind of like make them young so they last a while. And instead he ends up spilling his experiment on this box of soap, and the grandparents use it, and then he spends the whole rest of the movie trying to actually like figure out, okay, how do I change that? Because he does some work and he's like, oh no, this is lethal. So if I don't find a cure, my grandparents are going to die. And so he's just a genius, like figuring out the whole movie. And it was just very entertaining. I remember having a crush on Jean himself, and also the younger version of Jean, and Sydney's love interest in this movie as well. I had a crush on both of them. So I always loved the movie for that. But overall, they did so good. I still think it has held up. It was very entertaining. And I just like the lessons learned at the end. And they did some self-reflection. And I think that was a big part in childhood movies, because you don't always see characters self-reflecting, like, oh, you pointed this out to me. Let me take the time to think about it and then realize, like, come out of that with some outcomes on my life. And that's essentially like what they did in this movie. So I think that that's a really good lesson, to take time to self-reflect, because, yeah. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. 2 thumbs up, bomb.com. If you have not seen this movie recently, definitely you need to watch it and kind of relive. I personally like this movie rather than the Zac Efron version. Give me this 17 again, the OG one from the 2000s, instead of the later one. Okay, I will see you guys soon. Bye.
This has been another episode of Real Talk with Noelle.